Hello, everybody. This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey podcast. I'm joined today, and I'm joined as always by the ever wonderful Mr. Jason Johnston Yellen. All right, you're just sitting there.
I heard you keeping it simple there. That was good. That was impressive.
I did. You know why?
Keep it simple.
I couldn't. I'm still waking up, so I couldn't really think of something like witty, and I didn't take a shower yet, so I didn't have shower time to think of something.
Well, I'm deeply honored that you think of me in the shower. Thank you.
Just for about 17 seconds, and then we're done.
That's all it takes to come up with a nickname?
That's all it takes to come up with a nickname.
Let me say this. Since we're in the intro. Since you introed me as lover of sandwiches, which 100% true, 100%.
Yeah,
Do you know the number of people?
Truth. Yeah.
Number of people asking me sandwich follow-ups? It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I've said this for years about myself. I've never been particularly good with the small talk. I often get kind of nervous and I fill in gaps, and you know that about me. Mm-hmm. So when someone wants to talk sandwiches and bread and fillings, you've got me. I am all in. I am sold on that.
Right, and I think that I feel as if I've given you a life tool, Jason, because you're not good with the small talk. But you are so in love with the sandwiches, and a discussion surrounding sandwiches is nothing, right? There's nothing. There's really no substance there, but you can talk about it at length. And
how dare you say there's no substance there? How dare you? How dare you? Well, I tell you, you start off with mayonnaise or no mayonnaise.
All right.
And you can get a quick bead on a person depending on their answer there, because people who put mayonnaise in sandwiches are clearly monsters. So,
But they can throw you a curveball and say salad dressing or say Miracle Whip, right? Which
Miracle Whip.
No, don't
I'm
go
leaving
there.
the conversation if you say
there.
Miracle Whip. Miracle Whip is... I think that's a straight-up petroleum product that is a byproduct of producing gasoline in the United States.
Growing up, I hated mayonnaise. Unless it was on, and we've talked about this before, my mother used to make me some roast beef and mayonnaise sandwiches, which sounds disgusting. But when I found Miracle Whip, it was... Now, we're talking, Jason, you have to understand, we're talking 4th grade to maybe 7th grade, somewhere in there. And it was a revelation for me. There was a sweetness to it, which helped me overcome that sort of texture of the Miracle Whip.
Here's the $1 million question.
Yep.
Given that you're talking 4th grade to 7th, so you're talking about 9 years old to about 11, 12 years old.
Sure.
Did you ever eat the Miracle Whip straight from the jar with a spoon?
I have not done that. I have, however, licked the knife after spreading it on my sourdough bread.
Yeah, so for all of our UK and Commonwealth listeners, salad cream, my man, salad cream. That was the stuff of dreams when we were that age.
Off the spoon?
That was. I will be honest with you. I have consumed salad cream straight. Here's the thing, though: the cream is a misnomer. If you're thinking of something white, creamy, and fluffy, like marshmallow fluff, that's not salad cream. It's much more of just a creamy dressing.
More watery than a mayonnaise, closer to like a ranch.
Yeah, like a thinner mayonnaise. Yeah.
Okay.
And consistency of a ranch.
Okay.
Yeah, salad cream was mental. That was always in the house. And I think I've probably said everything I know in the world on this podcast at some point. Now we're into season 6. But my dad was always a meat and potatoes guy. And I remember in the summers, we would have, for dinner, we would have cold meat with salad and chips, French fries on the side of that. And you could just put salad cream over all of that. And it was remarkable, really remarkable.
I seem to recall Vincent Vega talking with Jules in a car in Pulp Fiction about French fries and what the French put on the French fries. Man, they dip it in that shit. What did he say? You know what they put on the French fries in France and Belgium? What do they put? Mayonnaise. Ooh, damn. Yeah, they love it. Shit. I forget. Where'd
you get Belgium from? They don't reference Belgium.
Oh, not Belgium. Amsterdam. That's it. It's Amsterdam. I don't know why I said Belgium.
Belgium. You know what they dip their Belgian chocolates in? Mayonnaise. Mayonnaise. I don't even know what that accent is.
I don't know. No one knows what that accent is. But right now,
nobody knows what that accent is.
Driving off the side of the road, the fact that I said Belgium
Somebody asked me
than Amsterdam.
Somebody asked me the other day, what do you think of Mike Myers' Scottish accents?
Oh.
And I said, as somebody who struggles every day with his own Scottish accent, I love Mike Myers' accent. I absolutely love it. Fat Bastard, Stuart from So I Married an Axe Murderer. Just brilliant.
I've heard you try to do a Scottish accent, and it's terrible. It's remarkably
I just don't have one.
Yeah.
I just don't have it. I also love people who do Groundskeeper Willie impersonations. Like that's a sound that I can't make come out my mouth.
So you don't get all upset with the appropriation, with the you're making fun of my people kind of thing?
No, because it's a stereotypical accent, right? You'd be hard pressed to go to Scotland. I'm not saying they don't exist, but you'd be hard pressed to go to Scotland and meet someone who actually sounds like Groundskeeper Willie, or actually sounds like Stuart from So I Married an Axe Murderer. But as a caricature of an accent, I think it's fun. Like I don't think it works for us middle-aged white fellas to be doing our best Apu impersonation.
No,
I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Scotland, I think Ireland are still on the table.
So,
I still think there's fun to be had there.
So you're saying a cartoonish accent of a stereotypical cartoonish accent is okay?
Of a white guy, yes.
Of a white guy. Okay, there you go.
I'll fill in those ellipses for you, you know?
Jason, I'm just back from my trip to Bermuda. A nice rainy, windy, blowy time.
Who is it that sang the song? Do 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 ba-da-na, boo-da, boo-da, boo-da. Is one of those words Bermuda?
Oh, Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama. Key
That's
Largo, Montego, ooh, something we go. Swanana.
Wow.
It's the Beach Boys without Brian Wilson, a.k.a. pure fucking trash. But hey, it made the 80s
the
pop
mayonnaise of the Beach Boys years.
the total mayonnaise of the Beach Boys years. Yeah, rough stuff. Just pure pop garbage.
So it sounds like you would have been sunning yourself on a deck, swimming in an open pool, just covering yourself in the SPF 50. Did all of those things happen on this cruise of yours?
I would say 100%, 0% of that happened.
That's a shame. That's a bit of a... You've come back with a little rust coating. It's not a tan. You rusted.
No, I just a bit. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Oh, you took my joke. God damn it! This is what I get for only listening 25%. Oh, Jason.
I remember when you used to listen 50%. I'm actually getting adjusted to this 25% world.
You like it?
I'm starting to read your eyeballs. Like, this is only 25%. This is only 25%.
But I'm back. I'm happy to be back, and I'm excited for a few things. I'm excited for the guest that we have today, Samara B. Davis. And I'm excited for a little game that we're going to be playing a little later, courtesy of our friends at Blind Barrels, who, listeners would have heard his name many times in the past. Seabass, Christopher Sebastian, or you'd say Christopher Sebastian, is a part of. And so we're going to be doing a little game with something they've sent to us a little later after our interview with Samara. So I'm excited for all that.
Indeed.
Do you have some oil for this Tin Man?
Is that what you're doing over there to the Tin Man? It's always the Tin Man with you.
Listen, before we go into our conversation with Samara, is there anything that you wanted to mention?
I will say, Extra is starting to take on a little life of its own where, and I think it's only a reflection of the whiskey industry moving under our feet in 2022.
Okay.
But the feedback that we're starting to receive on the investment side of the business, the feedback we received talking about the independent bottling side of the business, and the feedback we've received in just briefly talking about NFTs.
Yeah.
Like these are independent bottling has obviously been around for a long time. For a hell of a long time. NFTs, new to the scene, taking advantage of new technologies. Excuse me. It's hard for me to get these words out. And then this modern investment scheme revolving around casks and this kind of the shape that it's currently taking. It's interesting to me, the people who listen to our podcast, the people who follow Single Cask Nation, are for the most part people excited by whiskey, liquid, in a bottle, being opened, being shared, being experienced among friends.
Not being in Singapore, having to burn a token to receive it a month later. Yes, go on, continue.
Those are words. And so that part's interesting for me. And so in looking at where we're at as an industry and the question that for a long time we've ended the podcast with our guests or ended an interview with our guests with what are you most excited about as you kind of look forward is a way to always celebrate the best of this industry. And it's been interesting with some of the extra areas of focus where to our minds, to our sensibilities, we're not necessarily presenting the best of the industry and the best side of the future of this industry. If the future of this industry is NFTs, then I think we and a lot of our listeners and a lot of our nation friends might be upset.
I think we're looking at a blip in time. I think, like, if we're talking NFTs specifically, I think it's become a thing. It will likely remain a thing, but to be the thing, to become what whiskey's about, I don't think so. I think it will remain a smaller segment. It may grow, but I think it will remain, hopefully, a smaller segment.
As you talk about it being a blip, do you think it'll be a Beanie Baby-sized blip on the whiskey industry radar?
I hope it's more a Furby blip, right? The Beanie Babies went on for a few years, but Furbies were just the 1 year.
Or the Bell's decanters of the 21st century.
I feel bad for all of those people who spent
bad.
so much money on Bell's decanters.
Real bad. Yep. You couldn't pay somebody to come to your house to take them away now.
Right? Have you, really quickly, just out of curiosity, Have you ever had any of the Bell's liquid that was in a Bell's decanter? Was it just standard Bell's blend? Was it something that was unique for the decanters? Do you even recall?
Nope.
You don't.
I know nothing about them aside from some people invested real heavily in them.
They were like the Scottish Beanie Babies.
Had rooms full of them and thought, this is my retirement. This is it. Just like the Beanie Babies. So, yeah, it's another one of those tough things, though, right? When you see something blowing up and you think, oh, I'm going to go get a part of this. You're not the only person having that thought. And so a lot of people are buying those things for investment. They're buying the toys and never taking them out their packs.
Yeah.
But the value that ever accrued was because I don't know why I'm not saying it out loud. I'm thinking about Star Wars toys here.
Easy.
No, the reason that some of those accrued value is because kids were buying them, ripping them from their packaging and playing with them.
Exactly.
And then somebody comes along and says, actually, I found this unopened Luke Skywalker in the back of a cupboard.
Yeah.
I'd hidden it for an upcoming birthday and forgot about it for 30 years. And folk go, I would like to purchase that from you. When they then re-release Star Wars toys and folk go buy them and store them in their cupboards,
then they're not worth that.
Baseball cards did the exact same thing, right? So, anyway, we're not. The point wasn't to rehash old territory. It was just to say it's been interesting to me that Extra is starting to get some feedback reflecting some general uneasiness with some places the industry is going.
I'll tell you, I like that you bring this up because it makes me think of the thing I hate about news in general the most, and that is always focused on the negative, right? That's so easy. It's low-hanging fruit to focus on the negative and the negative what-ifs. So with that in mind, as we're looking at news stories, I'm going to try to seek out the more positive ones to help offset the less positive ones.
Yeah, I think sometimes the positive, fun ones are the ones where you find somebody's top 5 list or top 10 list of bottles. And then you just go through it and you say, do I agree or disagree? Here's why I agree. Here's why I disagree. Like those are the kind of the fun whiskey conversations to be had, but it's not necessarily breaking news in 2022 that somebody has a favorite top 10 whiskeys. But those are always fun episodes to cover. But if you're looking for good news, I would look towards today's guest. And I would look towards an ever-evolving whiskey fan base. And I think the more people we can introduce to this world of whiskey, to have whiskey conversations and flavor conversations and experiential conversations, I think selfishly, the happier you and I will be, right? That's an industry that we joined. That's an industry we want to continue.
There's some good news for you. Yeah, exactly.
Party to, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought today's conversation with Samara was really excellent. And just sitting down with somebody who's passionate about whiskey and we were kind of bourbon focused on the liquid side of things, but she loves spirits.
Yeah.
She loves single malt scotch as well. And it was just nice to be able to talk to somebody who was looking to expand the group of people experiencing the best of this industry.
And just to add on a bit more good news, I want to say happy 6th anniversary, not just to Samara B. Davis, but to the entire Black Bourbon Society. Come May 31st, they will celebrate a full 6 years as being a society. So congrats on that. I'm really excited to see what the next 6 years is going to look like. So without further ado, here is our conversation with Samara B. Davis. Samara B. Davis, I'm really excited to bring you on board. For those of you who are not familiar, Samara, you're the founder of Black Bourbon Society, which I was looking just on Friday. You have close to 25,000 people in your Facebook group, which is just phenomenal. So a huge Facebook group. I wonder if you could just give our listeners the lay of the land. Talk to us about the start of the Black Bourbon Society, its beginnings, how long it's been around, and how you've grown it up until through today.
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to share my story with you and your audience. Let's see.
Cheers.
Let's start from the beginning. Black Bourbon Society was something that I created almost 6 years ago when I saw a need for more diversity and inclusion in the spirit space. And, it's always been twofold. It's always been cultivating this audience and really proving to the industry that this demographic exists and that this demographic was valuable. But we've always had in mind that we would work with the brands on how to actually engage with the audience. So in 2016, when I started this company or this organization, I came in with this big mission that I wanted to prove to the industry that African Americans were worthy of experiencing, this direct consumer marketing experiences and events that I had seen the brands do for other demographics. I started in Oakland. I started producing events with a local brand, with a local rep for one of the larger brands. And right off the bat, we realized that not only were we, again, showcasing this audience, so to speak, that we were now cultivating this audience, but that within this audience was real community. So we originally started our community off in the Bay Area with only about 75 people. And it was through events and through whiskey education and, cocktails and tastings that this community grew. And then the following year, I flew out to Atlanta, where I currently live now. And I did the exact same thing. So we picked up another 75 to 80 people, all learning about bourbon and whiskey. And, just the back and forth, the two sets of emails and communications to these two audiences, it only made sense that we take advantage of social media and throw everybody into a Facebook group. And that's really where the group began to grow. So it was always intended to be in person, in this in-person experience, but just out of pure laziness on my part, honestly, guys, I decided to throw everybody into a private Facebook group. And from there, it grew organically and it grew wildly. And it grew across the country and even into other countries. Now we've got 26,000 members all talking about bourbon and whiskey 24/7 within this private Facebook group. And we, curate special programming and educational opportunities specifically for that group. But we still hold true to what we were originally doing back in 2016, and that's working with the brands on how to connect and genuinely engage with African American consumers. So we still, especially now that COVID is quote unquote over, right? We
knock on wood.
Appreciate the air quotes. Thank you.
The air quotes on the podcast, but as it's quote unquote over, we're back to producing in-person events just like we were back in 2016. So now we do it on a much larger national scale, but we're back to cultivating audiences and working with the brands and looking at their brand strategy and really translating it into a way that resonates with consumers of color.
Were you able to do any online tastings as part of the COVID lockdown? Was that available to you? Was it something you had any interest in? I
am COVID whiskey tasting Zoom called out. I am over the whole thing. And so here's the thing with COVID. We said you either did three things during COVID, right? You either learned how to make bread, became a plant mom, or learn how to drink whiskey.
Like all three,
you
Samara?
really just right, or sometimes all three, but anyone that was associated with the spirits category, like business, thrived
Yeah.
during the pandemic, and business very much thrived for us. We went completely, all in on virtual experiences, and providing cocktail courses, whiskey tasting courses, lots of education opportunities. With our membership, we did happy hour every single Friday
Nice.
for the past 2.5 years. We did a program called Whiskey Weekly, where we had master distillers and brand owners and brand ambassadors come in and speak directly to our audience every Wednesday. We did a tasting with them. So the audience actually grew during the pandemic. We doubled in
Wow.
size just alone
Wow.
in the past 2 years, just because folks had time and curiosity and on their hands. So they all came to us. And yeah, so we just went all in on virtual programming, and then the brands, because of course the brands were also grounded, right? So their brand ambassadors, their
Sure.
sales and marketing team were now stuck at home as well. They couldn't get out and do their regular sales calls and events that they do, so they relied heavily on us to help to market and advertise their products and their releases directly to to audiences. So we were busy, super busy, but I'm glad those days are over. Every once in a while, I still get a call for a virtual tasting, and I decline it. It's got to be Oprah on the line for me to do it.
Do you? I know you said there's burnout
Hmm.
there. Do you foresee, because you've got this national and international presence, do you foresee a time when the burnout, kind of when you rebound from that, that you might want to return to the occasional, not the every Friday, not the every Wednesday, but might they have usefulness for you once you get a chance to take a break
Yes, I think
from them?
so. But I also think not only is it burnout for me from a production standpoint and from a position of leadership, but I think our audience is also zoomed out as well. And right now we're
Yeah.
in this
Yep.
space where folks just want to be out and about. People are making up the trips that they still had on the books from 2020. And so they're out, they're traveling, they're about, they're not in front of their computers anymore. But I do think that as this like initial surge of kind of catching back up with what you missed for the past 2 years, I think once that kind of settles back in, there may be an opportunity to do a mix of, in person and virtual. Um, but I think right now it's almost counterproductive. Let people live. Go out there. Don't be in front of your computer and go get the fresh air. Go get on the plane. And then, yeah, maybe in the fall, we'll get back to doing some sort of mix or hybrid approach, but not right now.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
The question that I had in mind, because you brought up an interesting point, right? Where you're looking to communicate with communities of color and bringing in that
Hmm.
inclusivity. And I'm not asking for industry secrets here, but I'm curious. I think various industries, whether it's whiskey or food or travel or you name it, are missing the mark with certain communities, be it communities of color, be it Jewish communities, be it Muslim communities, what have you. What has the whiskey industry, what marks has the whiskey industry missed when trying to reach out to communities of color? And how are you putting those two worlds together?
That's an interesting question. I don't think the whiskey industry didn't know it had a diversity issue, right? I think before I came onto the scene, whiskey was very much promoted as a middle-aged white male's drink. And it's been that way
Yep.
for decades and, for hundreds of years, honestly. And I think the whiskey world was quite happy just living in that lane of being the
Sure.
middle-aged white man's drink. And then 5 years ago, when I started Black Bourbon Society, you also had other groups popping up, right? You had Women Who Whiskey started popping up. You had Whiskey
Mm-hmm.
Chicks. You've got Bourbon Women. You now have women taking on major leadership roles within these organizations. I think now the industry
Sure.
itself sees itself as like, oh wait, like we actually aren't just middle-aged white men anymore. Now we are women.
Yeah.
Now we are African Americans. Now we are Latino, and we are, different religions, and Asian and LGBTQIA. Like we're all the things. And I
Sure.
think
Mm-hmm.
the industry kind of was caught off guard with how do we pivot and how
Mm.
do we diversify an industry that has always been sold and positioned in one way in the market. And they very much still struggle with that to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Although there has been
Yeah.
some strides that have been made, and they have had to to recognize and acknowledge that diversity is happening before our very eyes, like this major push not only in the industry but societally, right? Politically, like we
Mm-hmm.
are all
Mm-hmm.
seeing this major push
Mm-hmm.
for diversity and inclusion. And so they're scrambling just like everybody else is to try and figure out how do we change our messaging? How do we actually do this the right way? The truth is, the majority of brands don't know how, right? There's no one on staff that knows how, which is
Yeah.
why,
Mm-hmm.
again,
Yep.
we are consulting with the brands and we work with them behind closed doors to figure out the best strategy to do that.
Jason, I don't know if you had a follow up to that, but
I have a follow up, but it sounds like you've got a follow up as
yeah.
well. So
Well,
go for it.
so it's going to be a bit of a lead up to it, but trust me, it's going to pay off.
Okay.
So in 2012, Jason and I were, in a way, forced into starting a festival called Whiskey Jubilee. Whiskey Fest New York switched their event from a weekday to the Jewish Sabbath, and we were the Jewish whiskey company, and so we had distributors and importers and brands saying, most of the people that go to Whiskey Fest can't go to this anymore. Can you help? Can you help us out?
Right.
So in 4.5 weeks' time, we put together an event called Whiskey Jubilee, which at that time was 99.99%, white Jewish male. And over the period of around 6 years or so, we grew into Chicago, we grew into Seattle, and I would say by the end, it ended up being a more 65-35 split of men to women. And then there were people of color, Asian, Latino, etc. It was much more diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And we also made it, for us, it was very important to not have models behind the table, especially for women, right?
Right.
We didn't want just, pretty women or handsome men behind a table. We wanted people who could talk intelligently about the brands. And so that was the stipulation. If you want to exhibit, you have to be brand direct. You can't just be a pretty face.
Love it.
So we were very happy with that. Now, with that in mind, when I go to the Black Bourbon Society Facebook page, I love it there because the conversation is great. The questions are great. But I sometimes want to comment, but I also think, am I just another middle-aged white guy voice that doesn't need to be heard? You know what I mean? So with all that in mind, am I taking the right position? Just reading and seeing what's going on? Should I chime in?
You should chime in.
Where?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should
Okay.
chime in. And of course, we are the Black Bourbon Society. I get this question all the time, but we are advocates for diversity and inclusion. So all voices really do matter. And all voices really do lend to the conversation, and we all grow together. So absolutely. And we have white male members, and they show up at events and they're participating in the conversation and they're bottle swapping, and it's a whole thing, right?
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, we're all inclusive.
Okay.
So no, by all means, like, don't feel like you need to be quiet. We welcome your voice and your expertise,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is really needed.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, that's
But isn't there then a fine line between that, knowing that, and we talk about this on the podcast, knowing that as middle-aged white men, we need to be doing more listening, but at the same time, we do also have things to say, and goodness knows there's enough people hearing our voices. How does one strike that balance between, I know our kind needs to do more listening, but also I'd like to enter into the conversation?
Well, I think it depends on the conversation, right? And so if we're talking whiskey and we're talking about, have you had this? Is it on your shelf? I'm trying to look at your shelf, Joshua, to see what I need you to send me samples of. But, it's all about, like, if we're having a conversation about whiskey, like, absolutely, if you know about it, if you've got experience with the brand or it's your favorite, jump in and share that knowledge, right? Because that helps to build the educational base of the group, right? Now, there are some times when we have topics on diversity and inclusion, and it really is about African Americans feeling like they're not heard in the industry. Maybe that is a better time to listen, right? Or to even if you comment, right? Maybe it's a comment of support to say, like, I'm just listening. I really am finding it fascinating, and I want to know how I can support. So there are moments where you may want to just say that you're more of a listener and fall back and receive the information. But 9 times out of 10, especially in Black Bourbon Society, we are literally talking about booze all day long. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but fortunately, it has no color attached to it other than what comes out of the barrel. Like there's no, it's made for us all. And I think that's the thing, like, when I really look at where bourbon is headed in the future, because we're 5 years in, we're 6 years in, and I think we've proven to the point that the Black consumer exists and has major buying power, right? And is a demographic that really needs to be acknowledged and recognized. We've proven all of that. But as I continue to consult with the brands, I'm now helping them to shift the way that they approach marketing to our society. And it's not just to African Americans, right? It's not just to Asians or Latinos or to middle-aged white males. It's really I think we are at a pivotal time in our society where we can redefine bourbon altogether. It's almost taking a modern approach, getting out of some of this nostalgia that, is built on it's built on discrimination and segregation and racism and all of those things, right? Like, I think it's time for us to move away from that and to just really go in presenting bourbon as truly America's native spirit.
There you go.
And if it is America's native spirit, then that is not just middle-aged white males. Because that's not what our country looks like. So,
exactly.
So this is a conversation for all of us. So please jump in, join in, and share what you know. And share some of your samples back there, please.
Oh, yeah. Listen, you ever find yourself in Connecticut, look me up, because I have a lot of whiskey to share, and COVID's over now, so I'm inviting everybody. Just come in,
it's like,
please.
I know you can't drink that all of that by yourself. So.
Like, we do have a running joke, though, that Joshua's house is where samples go to die. And so if you expect anything to come out, if you go to his house, he'll pour for you all day and all night. If you wait for samples to come in your front door, it ain't happening.
So I agree with that. I'm the exact same way. And I tell the members, if you're ever in Atlanta, please come by. I will open up all the cabinets, like underneath the couches. I've got bottles everywhere. Please drink as much as you possibly can. But no, me bottling, sampling, and if you're waiting on me, it's never happening.
I knew we were kindred spirits, Samara. Thank you.
So
I feel validated.
Yes, come to Atlanta, Joshua. The door is always open.
I love Atlanta. I'm going to come back with an Atlanta question shortly.
Okay.
But my follow on here is, in terms of this listening, in terms of this paying attention, in terms of this responding, and absolutely love what you just said about let's make bourbon for everybody. Let's all get involved here and share this. And so I'm kind of curious how quickly you'll be able to answer my question. I don't think it's going to be a particularly complex question, but is there some historical, even modern historical caution from brands where to treat people of color as a monolith is as bad as not listening to them? Is there some caution there that you can't just walk in and say, here's what all black folk want to hear, see, taste, and so in order to not make that mistake, we're just going to quietly go about business as usual and try not to offend people? How does do you experience, or have you seen some of that caution from
Absolutely.
brands? And if you have, how should they get over that, move beyond that?
Absolutely. This kind of goes back to, last 2020, right? It's not even last year. We've been in a pandemic so long, you don't know what year it is anymore. But back in 2020, when we went through this racial reawakening or reckoning in our country, around the murders of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, and how, the brands were very slow to make any sort of statement, especially around Black Lives Matter. Now, you had larger companies, right? Coca-Cola, Sony, the networks like Nike, all these large conglomerates came out, threw up black tags on social media and said, like, enough's enough. All Black Lives Matter. Like, we are behind this movement. And we are recognizing that this is a pivotal time in our country. The brands were very hesitant to do anything. They kind of froze in the moment, and they acted like business was happening as usual, which was really disappointing. And, in true Samara fashion, every once in a while, I like to write a think piece and call people out and call them to the carpet. And so we did this public letter to the industry where we did call them to the carpet. And the response from the majority of the brands that I spoke with were, well, we just don't know what to do. And we kind of feel like if we don't know what to do, then we shouldn't do anything at all. But how that comes off to the consumer is it comes off as if you don't care. And it comes off as if you've just plugged your head in the sand. And so it's very off-putting to the consumer base, who's just like, hey, don't you see us? Like, we're in pain. We buy your products all day long to cope with our pain. And you don't even recognize that what's going on in the world. And so that was a really interesting moment, not, for society, but especially with my relationship with the brands and really trying to understand how can we better serve them so that they can better serve their diverse consumers. And, you're absolutely right. They really didn't know how to do it. Before then, they had relied on these like marketing stereotypes, right? Of like, oh, women like all things pink. Black people like all things sweet, and they were just trying to follow off of something in a textbook that some 20-year-old said, right? But had actual no value to it. And so after having real conversations with them, we had to say, like, look, it's absolutely okay to say, we don't know what to do in this moment, but we recognize that this is a moment to make action and to take action. And slowly you had brands that did come up and say, just be honest. And that takes a lot of courage to do, for a brand to say, we don't know what to do in this moment, but we hear you, we see you, we recognize it, and we'll figure it out, even if we got to figure it out together. And so I was very impressed that some brands did make that statement. Here's the flip side of why they really didn't want to do it, though, is they didn't want to piss off their base.
Yep.
So again, in 2020, we're in the middle of the most heated election cycle known to man. We're all stuck at home, and then we're in the middle of this racial awakening in our country and in our society. just a lot of muck going on, and we were all at home and had no other choice but to deal with it.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, but the base, which again has traditionally been middle-aged white male, sometimes from rural parts of our country or from middle America of our country, they didn't understand the need to do this whole diversity or to even speak up and be part of this moment too. And so a lot of the brands were also concerned, how do we make this shift? How do we become more diverse without pissing off our hardcore audience? And that's just a hard place to be in. It's really uncomfortable for everybody, you know. So there's some learning, there's some evolution that has to take place, but it takes courage. Courage is the number one answer to that. And a lot of brands are moving slow, but they're moving courageously, and that takes a lot of guts right now.
Can you speak to the frustration? And I don't want to assume it's there, but if it is there, can you speak to it? Of saying, look, I'm a consumer. I've got black skin. I'd like you to speak to me. And then people turning around and saying, why do we have to make bourbon political? Why does it have to be like? Does that just make you pull your hair out?
Well, my color shouldn't be political.
Right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not making it political. You are.
Yep. Yep. There you go.
You know, and again, if we are really defining what does it mean to be an American, and what does bourbon mean to be America's native spirit, then there's nothing political about that. That is just recognizing our country for what it is.
Have you seen success there? Have you seen people surprise you pleasantly that they've got that message?
I have, actually. I've seen brands step up in a really big way, and I've seen smaller brands who only have staffs of 4 to 10 people who, for them it's really hard for them to be diverse because it's literally them, their wives, their next door neighbor, and their cousin that's running the still. You know what I mean? Like, but I've seen smaller brands that are popping up and want to get it right from the very beginning.
Yeah. And
they're just asking for a little encouragement and a little direction on how to appropriately do that. I'm seeing mid-sized companies who are growing, and as they grow, really want to take on inclusion internally. How do they hire more diverse talent within their ranks? How do they build a diverse workforce? So I see companies smaller companies and mid-sized companies that are really interested and really want to be part of the next wave, right, of bourbon. They haven't been here for 200 years, so they don't have the historical component to it, but they definitely want to grow, and they want to grow with what our society is and is becoming. And even with the larger conglomerates that have been here, the larger bourbon brands that have been here for hundreds of years and have, all the names are part of the historical, references in bourbon history. They also want to get it right. And that work is going to take a lot longer. And so there is no frustration with that, because you just understand, it takes forever and a day to move these big, giant, barges, literally, it's the difference between how do you turn around a tugboat, how do you turn around a cruise ship, so it takes a lot longer and a lot more effort to make that change. But, you've got companies that are really took on an initiative to hire, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like chief diversity officers. They really took on task force. How do they make their staffs more diverse? They started consulting and working with, smaller nonprofits and really working with societies like mine to reach diverse audiences. So there's some opportunity there, and I think everyone is trying in their own way to get it right.
Is that your work with Diversity Distilled? I know we've been speaking about Black Bourbon Society. Could you speak to Diversity Distilled? You're the founding director there?
Yeah, so Diversity Distilled is our nonprofit organization, And it is focused more on recruiting, promoting, and retaining diverse talent within the larger organizations. And it's not just the bourbon
Gotcha.
or whiskey industry, it's the spirits industry as a whole.
Sure.
And we really do consult with HR departments, with the C-suite, with managers on how they can be more diverse and inclusive, how they can empower their already built-in workforce to be more educated around diversity and inclusion. And even, helping some organizations to develop like an employee resource group, so that there can be some sort of support for diverse employees within the organizations. So we do a lot of work with that. We're also working with Tales of the Cocktail this year to produce a diversity career fair. So again, really looking at how do we make this a more diverse workforce. And it's with inclusion.
Yeah.
It can't just be posting posting a job post on LinkedIn or Indeed, right? You've got to be a little bit more intentional with seeking out diverse candidates. And you've got to partner with certain folks. You got to go to the schools. You got to look at talent from other industries and see how you can translate that over into the spirits industry. But there is definitely a way to do that. And we do a lot of consulting around that with Diversity Distilled.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to have the floor, Jason?
See, I start to do this in interviews. I give Joshua the runway, and then I start to take it over, and then Joshua begs to be allowed back in again. So please, Joshua.
I want to switch gears a little bit here because I realize when we first started the conversation, it was, welcome to the podcast. Tell us about Black Bourbon Society, and then we moved on. But we didn't get to know you. And so I'm really curious to hear about your spark within whiskey and also why bourbon and not another whiskey or another spirit, or maybe you started with something else and then transitioned over to primarily bourbon. So I wonder if you could tell us about your spark a bit.
Well, this is where it gets juicy.
Ooh, right. Here we go. Hold on. Let me pull my seat up here. All right.
No, we were laughing before we were recording about my ex-husband. And my ex-husband literally drove me to drink. No, I'm just kidding. So, but...
You weren't kidding. This is getting juicy.
In a more professional way of saying this, I was, so who am I? First of all, two things that are really important to me is I'm a mom, right? And I'm someone else's wife. I still am a wife, but someone else's now. And so I'm a mother. I have two small children. At the time when I started Black Bourbon Society, they're small. Now they're 8 and 11 and think they know everything in life. But I, back then in 2016, I was a wine drinker. I lived in the Bay Area and Napa was in our backyard. So that, when I had free time, my girlfriends and I would go up to Napa, we would have wine and we would just enjoy, the local spirit. I didn't really drink a lot of hard liquor before then. Of course, in college, you go through the gamut of your different spirits, and I had too many fun nights with tequila and vowed to never, ever drink that again. But yeah, I was in my mid-30s and a serious wine snob. Like, I could swirl it around and pick up the aromas and, pick up bell pepper and, jammy notes on my palate. So I had all of that experience under my belt. But, I was married to this man who's not very nice, and he didn't like wine. He actually snubbed it every time that I drank wine.
Oh.
He was
okay.
He would kind of give me this smug look and be like, "Oh, you're drinking your wine again," or whatever. Yeah. So I was like, "Okay, well, let me see what you're drinking." And he was drinking bourbon.
Yeah.
And so I started drinking bourbon as a way to try and connect with him and build a stronger relationship with him. And I fell in love with bourbon and fell completely out of love with him. So
Oh, the juicy meter is off the scale right now. We need a new
it's
meter.
so full of shade. It's so full of shade, so full of snark. So all the black women pettiness, like it's just all there in the story. But I fell in love with whiskey and I saw an opportunity there. And it's literally was stars aligning for me. So
Yeah.
my previous background before I came into the spirits industry was I was a curator for an art gallery. So I worked in the art space for a really long time and had switched out of that to focus on large scale events and production for a nonprofit health organization.
Yeah.
And I had worked there for a little while and then got into a point in my career where I was done with logistics and just wanted to start consulting and doing my own thing. So I had my own nonprofit consulting and event production business that I was working. I was doing an event for someone else, and there was a woman who was a brand new rep for a whiskey brand sitting at the table with me at that event. And she and
Okay.
I started talking and started to get to know each other. And I said, well, I plan events and I do this in my sleep and I drink whiskey. I've got this new obsession with whiskey now because my husband at the time. So yeah, we should work together. And essentially, she third partied all of her work, all of the responsibilities that she was supposed to do for this brand. She gave it to me to do while she was getting settled and acclimated to the area where we lived.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I learned a lot about how to produce these direct consumer marketing events, like how an agency would produce it. Um, and it was really interesting. I asked her a question one day. I was just like, I'm planning these events, but I don't know who I'm planning these events for. And and she was like, oh well, I can't really answer this right now. I've got the cable guy company and the moving truck is late with my stuff. Just I'm gonna forward you over my marketing deck and you figure it out. So she did. And when she did that, that's when
Whoa.
I realized there was this gaping hole and there was nothing geared towards
Yeah.
consumers of color beyond the urban demographic.
Yeah.
And so that's
Sure.
really how Black Bourbon Society got started. Like that's how my passion got started right there. It just was kind of like literally things falling into place. I started Black Bourbon Society. I joined the USBG. I started going to all these whiskey trainings and presentations that the brands would give bartenders, just taking notes, refining my palate. I then went to the New Orleans Bourbon Festival, the very first one in 2017,
Okay.
and continue to just learn and continue to meet as many people as possible in this industry. And that's how I grew the business, and that's how I really got a hold into it. Yeah.
Wow. And go ahead, Jason.
No, I just love every story that has, I was sitting next to this
Yeah, right.
person randomly at a random event and everything
hmm
fell in place from that moment. I
Yeah.
love stories
And
that
then
have
the
that
husband, we got
component
rid of
in
the
them.
husband, and then we
Yeah.
picked up a new husband. And then the story, but every story that I have from that moment is really one that leads into a next, into another, and to another. And for me, what that means is that this was my purpose and this was my part of my assignment,
Yeah.
right? And it's kind of hard, you don't want to
Yeah.
find divinity in whiskey, although you should, right? Because Jesus turned water into whiskey. It wasn't
Yep.
wine. Um,
It wasn't
it's a
wine. Yeah, it's a
mistranslation.
mistranslation.
That's what we're
It's water
sticking with,
into
right?
whiskey.
Um, but um, but no, but there is some sort of divine need in this, right? And once I tapped
Mm.
into whatever I was aligned to do, whatever my purpose was, literally doors just started opening, things just started
Yeah.
unfolding in a
Yeah.
way that I couldn't have never imagined.
So the follow up question that I had, but I want to go down this a bit more, perhaps. But the follow up question that I had was once you got hooked on whiskey and found that passion within whiskey and went down the rabbit hole, how much room do you have for wine now? Like, can you go back to wine? Do you have that same love, or is that not as special to you anymore?
You
What
know,
does that
I'm
look
in my
like?
40s and something about tannins don't sit well in my stomach anymore.
Yep, it all comes up here. Then you need the
Yeah,
Tums.
it's just,
Like, I get it.
yeah, it doesn't sit well. But I'm headed to Napa. I'm on a top secret project. I'm headed to Napa Valley with the
Cool.
brand in 2 weeks. So we'll be there doing some
Okay.
things with wine and with whiskey. So I'll get a chance to pull that all back together. But no, I still drink wine, just not as much. You know, there's still a time for it. I still love a good margarita. Like I've actually gone back and
Yeah,
revisited
yeah,
tequila
yeah.
as an adult, quote unquote. You know,
Hashtag drinking responsibly.
drinking responsibly, right? Like I realized that a lot of tequila that's given to 20-year-olds is actually not tequila. It's just
Yep.
junk.
Mm-hmm.
But with whiskey and spirits education, you learn the difference and you learn high quality spirits. So I have gone back to drinking mezcal sours and
Oh
margaritas.
yeah.
So I love a good cocktail no matter what it is. But yeah, there is a time and place for wine. I was sitting by the pool yesterday with my daughter. I was just like, this is a rosé day,
Yeah.
but I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
have it.
Yeah.
I didn't have any chilled. So yeah,
Rosé all day. That's
rosé all day. It would have been perfect for yesterday, but I just didn't have any in the refrigerator.
And then in the other direction, do you find yourself going outside of bourbon to, say, Scotch whiskey or Indian whiskey or English whiskey? Like, where has your transition to bourbon take you to as far as other whiskey routes are concerned?
So this is how you know this is divine. I met my new husband.
Yeah.
Our first conversation was, "Oh, so you drink bourbon?" Well, I'm a Scotch drinker, and
nice.
I think you should, if you like this bourbon, then you should try this Scotch.
Yeah.
And my
Brilliant.
response was, "Okay, well, if you like that, then you should drink this."
Yeah.
Oh yes,
And
exactly.
so it's a whole trade off, right? My husband loves Scotch, and we've got our Scotch collection rivals my American whiskey collection. And he loves Japanese whiskey. So
Okay.
um, I have, spent a pretty penny hunting down very special bottles, rare bottles for him, just as gifts. So yeah, so we drink it all, right? We really do have the vocabulary and the understanding of all whiskeys and appreciation for it. So yeah, so it just kind of happens again. Like we focus on bourbon because it's America's native spirit. It's our American issue that we deal with. But we drink what we love is, yeah, we love Scotch. We love this resurgence of Irish whiskey that's happening right now. We're really loving that. Indian whiskey is amazing. And then the Japanese whiskey is great. The Kavalons with the Taiwanese whiskey is good.
Yeah.
So even there's Starwood, which is in Australia. That's amazing
Yeah.
whiskey.
Yep.
So yeah, we're global whiskey drinkers.
Do you remember the bourbons and the single malts that each of you shared with the other as part of that? If you like this, I gotta pour that for
I
you.
don't remember. I remember back then I was just like, oh, I drink only high proofs. I don't mess with Scotch because Scotch is only like
Yeah.
80, 90 proof. It's like, oh, you're such a lightweight in drinking that because I drink 127 and up. So I was being such a brat, right?
It's so funny. For years, I talked about, bourbon comes in at 80 proof, 90 proof. I'm cask strength Scotch. So I'm glad that we each had our snobby moments with other people.
Right.
So actually, this leads perfectly into what I wanted to ask you. And circling back to Atlanta, how long have you now been in Atlanta?
I moved here the summer before the pandemic hit. So summer 2019.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So I was visiting Atlanta a fair bit, round about 2017, 2018. And the Atlanta market was really interesting to me. And here we are talking about cask strength. It was rare for me to meet somebody who was familiar with cask strength. And it was a young market and an eager market, but it felt to me like they needed somebody to take them under their wing
Right.
and start putting in the heavy lifting on, here's where we're at with brown spirits, predominantly bourbon, but also with single malt. And here's where we can ride that train, roller coaster, aircraft, whichever metaphor you want to insert here. What's your experience been of the Atlanta marketplace, and given your own love of higher proof spirits?
It's definitely shifted since then. It's grown since 2019 when I first moved here. I think it just needed the educational base behind it, right? And I think in 2017, 2018, even 2019, that was new. It was it was on the cusp of the trend really taking off. Now the trend has completely exhausted itself, if you want to be honest, just because the
Interesting.
secondary market here is insane. So now they got the point that cask strength is great. They've got the point of single barrels. They've got all those points, and now you see a lot of price gouging with retailers here.
Damn it.
Selling 99 bottles of E.H. Taylor for $5.99. $8.99.
Yep.
So so it's not a secret anymore. We also have gotten some really cool bourbon bars here and some new cocktail bars that have great whiskey programs and great collections on their shelf. So the accessibility, it's a little bit easier to get some of the stuff that you wouldn't be able to find and have a sip of. So the educational opportunity has grown here a lot.
It was interesting to me because there was so much building. Both Atlanta and Nashville just had so much construction happening in both places.
Yeah.
And new bars, new restaurants, cocktail specialists were opening up so quickly that it was hard to educate everybody who needed educating and to bring them up to speed as quickly as they needed to come up to speed. There were obviously places here and there. Ponce de Leon, is it? That kind of indoor market
Ponce City
space
Market.
that was absolutely remarkable. I loved it there. Walked past Hugh Jackman there one night. Some of the Marvel filming was happening in Atlanta at that time.
Well, you've got to come back. There is a bar at Ponce City Market that is in the clock tower. It's a speakeasy bar that you just have to know about. It's called 12. But it's at the top. There's a rooftop like carnival.
Nice.
But there's also a set of staircases. There's no elevator access up there, but there's a set of staircases that look super duper creepy. And I promise you, there's no chainsaw murder at the top. But you open the doors.
Famous last words.
And it's like chandeliers and velvet couches and the best whiskey and cocktail, spirits collection that you could ever have. They don't have cocktail menus.
Okay.
You tell the bar what you like, and they go from there.
Interesting.
Yeah, but sweet little treasures like that are popping up all over Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, and I think I always get the number wrong on it. Is it 1821 Bitters who got their start in the market?
Yeah.
And they were just in the processes of moving to new facilities. And again, I'm talking 5 years ago. But they were in the process of moving. But I buy their bitters because I met them and absolutely fell in love with them. And to see their success has been really wonderful as well.
And talk about diversity. They're Black-owned and LGBTQIA.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just going to. I must have taken it out and put it downstairs, but I had just gotten a new bottle of the Japanese chili bitters, Jason. That you suggested to me. I went through a bottle and I got another one. So.
Yeah.
It's so good. I've got a mezcal cocktail that I put those bitters into, and absolutely wonderful.
Say, email me that recipe, please. Thank you.
We mentioned it on the podcast, and then I think Joshua said, "Yeah, gonna have to tell us that." And I was like, "Yeah, it's my Gringroni, 1 ounce." And Joshua says that my recipe doesn't live up to me riffing on a Negroni with what I do with it, but
Okay.
Joshua is very judgmental. He gives me a very tough time around these parts. I'm glad you're here today, Samara, so that I feel like I've got somebody on my side. It is. It's really simple. It's 1 ounce of mezcal. I use Papa Diablo out of the Whisky Exchange because I love it. The Espadina is excellent. It's 1 ounce of Campari. It's 1 ounce of what else do I put in it, Josh? I make it up and I stick it in a bottle and I put the bottle into my fridge and then I just pour my measures from my bottle, add my bitters, and I'm a happy camper. I don't
You put
think
vermouth in it?
Oh, it was an ounce of lime
Oh,
juice.
lime
Why am I
juice,
blanking
okay.
on this? So 1 ounce of mezcal, 1 ounce of Campari, 1 ounce of lime juice, and then a whole bunch of drops of the Japanese chili lime bitters. And then I put my half of squeezed lime just into the glass, tumbler glass, all filled with ice, all stirred up and down the hatch. And you talk about your rosé all day next to the pool. that is an outdoor warm weather cocktail that goes down very, very easily.
Okay. I'll have to try it.
Highly recommended. Highly. So with an eye on the clock, and I know you started out saying I have to get your children after this, and I've heard my first child coming home. My next one's coming home from practice soon. Joshua, do you want to wrap us up with a question and get us out of here? Do you want me to?
I would like for you to do that, but I wonder if you just have 2 minutes to answer one other question that's been burning in my head ever since you said you started Black Bourbon Society around 6 years ago. Bourbon has evolved so much in the past 6 years, and you mentioned it too, right? With this idea that secondary pricing has changed everything, all the way down to the retail shelf. And it used to be that 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, someone says, "Hey, I'm really interested in a bourbon. Where should I go? What should I try?" And I would just say, grab a bottle of Blanton's. You'll find them everywhere. They're $35 a pop. Easy breezy cover girl. You're good to go. Can't find that? Get a oh geez, why am I blanking on the name? Elmer T. Lee, right? And it was just all this stuff was so easy. And
so you're the reason why we
now,
can't find it on the shelf.
right. This is you can blame me, right? But it was readily available. The retail price was surely attainable, and now even retail prices have doubled. Right? You've got Antique Weller, which used to be a $27 bottle, and now it's I don't know what the retail price is, but
that was my recommendation to people was Antique.
And so my point to you is people who are looking to get into bourbon without giving away too many secrets, because as soon as you say it, the retail price is going to go up and the demand's going to go through the roof. But do you have foot in the door bottlings that you suggest to people if they're interested in getting into a bourbon or some other kind of even if it's Scotch whiskey now, right? What are your go-tos that you suggest to people?
Well, if it's bourbon, I say you can start at a reasonable price point with bourbon, right? Like at the end of the day, it's corn, it's water, it's yeast, and it's wood, right? Like it's a simple formula, right? Like that doesn't have to cost $150 or $180 to have a good bottle. A bottle of Evan Williams bottled in bond is $19.99 all day long. And sometimes if you catch it on sale, you can get it for $14.99, right?
Yeah.
I would say start with something quintessential like that, or start with Elijah Craig. I also think Maker's Mark is a really good example of just a quintessential classic bourbon. And if you want to feel a little fancy, fine, go get the Maker's 46, right? And at least you can make cocktails with it too. But there are some brands that are readily available and will always be on the shelf. That you could start off with those. I wouldn't, Blanton's and Elmer T. Lee are they're very hard to find now. you know, and they have
It just blows my
distribution
mind that
issues.
they are now.
And
Yeah.
it just really depends, right? So like you can find Blanton's and Walgreens in Florida all day long, right? Like they don't have any distribution issues in Florida. They don't have distribution issues in Texas. But someplace like California, you can't find it on the shelf, and if you do, you're paying $160 for it for a $50 bottle.
Yeah.
So I always suggest something that is always going to be on anybody's shelf. So go for your Evan Williams, go for your Elijah Craigs, go for your Maker's Mark, your Woodford Reserves. Like just go for those tried and trues. And start from there. Start within a price point that you feel comfortable spending money on. If you don't like it, you don't feel like you wasted $100,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So I would stick within that $20 to $40 range, maybe 50 if you feel special. But really keep it within that area and find out what you like. The other thing I say is if you really don't know where to start off at your local bar. Support your local establishment
Yeah, there you
and
go.
talk to your bartender. Tell them what you like and let them pick and start a journey for you there.
Yeah.
So there's always that option as well.
That's
And it'll save you a whole lot of money in the long run.
that's beautiful.
Um,
Well put. Yep.
yeah, for Scotch now, I'm a Balvenie girl.
Okay.
I
There you
love
go.
Balvenie. And you could start, for an introduction into Scotch, because everyone's so worried about the peat, and the rubber band and Band-Aid taste of it. You could start with the Caribbean cask. You could start with 14 year.
Yeah.
And you could start to, ease your way off into a quote unquote sweeter palate that'll lend really well to a Scotch. But Glenfiddich has also some really great. Their Solera is a good one. Even their 12-year with all the apple and pear notes in it is great.
Yep.
So just start off and ease your way to Scotch from sweeter into more peaty, heavy smoky notes. So
But back when I first moved to the US and people would ask me about, where should I start at the store with single malt, I always used to say Balvenie Doublewood.
yes, oh my God,
And
it's my
and
favorite.
at that point it was a $35 bottle.
Oh, don't tell me that.
And it was a great one. I am old, and I've lived in the US longer than I can remember. But that was in 2004. It was $35 a
Yeah.
bottle, and is now 60, 65,
Yeah.
maybe sometimes 70, depending on your particular market. But it's still available. It's still
still there.
right there for people. They're still able to get their hands on it.
Yeah, Doublewood is probably my favorite. But I'm an Octomore person too, so
Oh,
I
there you go.
I look forward to those special releases every year, and I'm the only one who drinks them. No one wants to go that high with the peat with me, but what can you do? So, but yeah, that Doublewood is special. That's for me, that's like a really good day. Like I am
Nice.
feeling myself today.
Nice.
Let me go and
little
pour
reward.
myself a little bit of the 17 year.
But the thing that I love about that as well is if somebody says to me, I've got someone who loves Scotch and I'd like to get them a gift, that one checks so many boxes. And you just mentioned the 17 a second ago, and I've always referenced the 12-year-old Doublewood.
Oh,
It was the
okay.
12-year-old that was at 35. Yeah, I didn't want to make it because I know the 17 is now
Yeah.
wee
Doublewood.
high. There's triple digits involved
Yes,
in
but
the
it's worth
17
it.
now.
Yeah. No, I had a call last week with a creative agency out of London, and they've done creative work for William Grant and Sons and all their portfolio, and they've also done some stuff for American whiskey clients, American whiskey brands and some other things. And I essentially begged the man on the phone. I was just like, "Look, I really want to work with you, and I will work for Balvenie. I will just You don't have to send me a check. You don't have to put me on the payroll. Just send me all these like I had a whole list. I was like, just send me these bottles, and I'll work for you for free.
We'll work for whiskey. Love it.
We'll work for whiskey. For American whiskey, for bourbon, no, pay me. But for Scotch, we can negotiate.
Well, actually, on the subject of work, and I know you've got irons in many fires and many projects, and I know you are crazy busy trying to schedule you for this interview. Gosh, we covered a lot of dates, and I'm so glad we got to sit down with you.
Yes.
Thoroughly enjoyed meeting you and having the conversation.
Absolutely.
And the closing question for you is, looking forward, looking into the future. I know you've talked about things you'd like to see from brands and how we speak to people and how we become inclusive. What are you most excited about as you look into your own future, your professional life ahead, which may very well incorporate brands?
Yeah.
But what has you jumping out of bed in the morning, aside from your kids, of course? Professionally, what are you most excited about looking into the future?
Oh, wow. This is a loaded question for me. I'm looking to see what is next for Black Bourbon Society. And again, earlier in our conversation, I said that, I feel like we've proven the point that the African American demographic is there. We know the data behind it, and we know we've claimed our value in the industry, in the space. So I'm looking to see what's next with Black Bourbon Society. We've always been twofold. We've always been this membership organization, but again, we've always been sort of this agency that really works with the brands on how to connect with these audiences. I'm ready to pivot more into the agency world and just solely focus with the brands on how to genuinely connect with diverse audiences, and not just Black audiences, right? But truly all diverse audiences, and really continuing to be that resource for brands to use to get their marketing messages out to diverse audiences. So we're in the next year, right? Because we turn 6 in May next month. So we'll really be focusing on transitioning more into an agency. And we'll let the membership continue to grow and be organic. But for me personally, I'm going to be pushing more towards the agency side. And I'm going to build it up as much as I possibly can. And select the successor to take it on to another level that I can't take it any further to.
Gotcha.
So I'm already thinking about what it means to grow and exit and transition into something else. I have some personal projects that I really want to focus on, continuing to use my voice, my personal story, to motivate others, especially Black women, to really step into their power, to find that divine alignment, their own assignments, and to help give them the tools that they need to know to become their own bosses and their own leaders of their own movements. So that's really what I want to be my legacy project. And we'll build this up as much as we can. And then I'll go off into the sunset and work on something else.
Well, please know you've got friends in us.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you.
Please come back on the podcast. Keep us abreast of the developing story as well, and what you're seeing and hearing and learning and empowering along the way.
Thank you.
We definitely want to be speaking to you more as the months become years as well.
Absolutely. Guys, this was so fun. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a pleasure.
Brilliant spending time with you, Samara. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Samara, thanks again so much for taking the time to meet with us. There was a lot, Jason, that I learned in this conversation, and I would say all of it positive. There was one comment that Samara made, which struck me and has sat with me for, well, since we've since we had our conversation, and hasn't sat with me easily. And it was a comment where she said, I think it was towards the end of the conversation, where she was talking about, you know, the African American community, the people of color community, where she says, we've proven ourselves as consumers. Just the idea that a certain community of people has to prove themselves in any way, shape, or form, I think is a really sad statement, or it makes me sad. And even more sad that it came out her mouth in such an easy manner. That it was just, this is a matter of fact, and sadly, it is a matter of fact. But it's sat with me for a while, and it's something that I think is I don't know. I'm still trying to create words around this and how I feel about it, but it's still ruminating on that one.
Yeah, an aspect that resonated for me is the sense of you're a woman, you like fruity flavors. You're African American, you like sweeter flavors.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine if someone came up to me and said, you know, you're a white dude in Virginia from Scotland, you like X? I'd be like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah,
I like all the things. I'm willing to explore all the things. It's always that willingness to put a palette in a box. And for me, of the 10 years of traveling around with Single Cask Nation, meeting the number of women who love heavily peated whiskies. And the mistake is to say, oh, that's surprising. Like, because the reality is, of course you do.
Yeah.
Of course you absolutely fucking
You're
do.
a human who has a tongue and enjoys flavors. Maybe you like these ones, maybe you don't like these ones.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And that was another part in talking to Samara, where we're saying, you know, what about when people get a little uncomfortable and they're like, oh, you know, you're an African American woman, you know, why are we trying to put politics into enjoying whiskey? And she's like, the color of my skin isn't political, right? Just like you said a second ago, you have a tongue, you like flavors, like boom, end of story. And I love the simplicity. You talk about something that sat with you. I enjoyed the simplicity of her answer, where she didn't dress it up. She didn't let us or anyone else off the hook with more words. She just said, the color of my skin isn't political.
Yeah. Yep.
And left it. Like, yep, I heard that loud and clear. I thought that was very, very well said.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pleasure, and I hope, Jason, that she takes us up on the invite to Virginia, on the invite to Connecticut, and you know, maybe we can come down to Atlanta and have some drinks with her. She was just a lot of fun. I could have sat and talked with her for another hour or more easily. Well, and again, just like we said, both on wax and off wax, when we'd hit stop on the recording, like, she's going to be back on the podcast. Oh, yeah.
That was the first foray into this. There will be future. How are things looking? How's your work going? How's Diversity Distilled doing? Like, there's a lot to follow up there as well. And I'm excited to see how things go for Samara over the next year, and the things she was talking about being excited for looking into the future.
Yep, same. Before we share what really is a small bit of news, not enough to wake the paper boy, but serious enough news to share, I don't know if you did this purposefully or not. But
If it's good, I did. If it's bad, I didn't.
But this episode goes live May the 4th, and you were talking about Star Wars action figures. Like, it's
That is
perfect.
the most tenuous of tenuous links. Jason says Star Wars early in this episode. May the 4th. Woohoo!
Hey, if I can fit it in, I will. I got that square peg into a round hole.
Even if you have to use your thumb.
I'm going to start a new band called Tenuous D.
Tenuous D?
Yeah, instead of Tenacious D, Tenuous D.
Oh, interesting.
See?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Is that the response a band name should get? Oh, interesting. Let's sit and ponder this for a moment. Is that the response you were going for?
What's that over there? Bye.
Things I see. What you did there.
So the bit of news, and yeah, I don't want to wake the paper boy because you've heard his voice before. He gets shouty, and he carries newspapers, and I don't want him to treat us like some people treat their dogs and roll up the newspaper and we get a bop on the nose. But just yesterday, the day before we sat to record, we received an update that yay, all of our whiskey from our Kentucky bottling hall has been picked up. Woohoo! And 10 minutes later, we received a report that some of it has been smashed or potentially lost, or we don't know because it's some computer automated damage report. And it's about 8 pallets worth of product that we don't know what's going on just yet.
No, we don't.
So, it's fun. It's funny. I'll say this really quickly. I know you have something to say, but this has been bugging me for a while. Months and months ago, when we submitted our wild turkey labels to the TTB, the people who like to troll the TTB and spoil surprises for people posted our labels up, and so we had to share it with people saying, yes, it's true. We bottled a 12-year-old wild turkey. We bottled a 9-year-old wild turkey. And that was sometime in January or February, right?
Yeah, it was label approval time a long time ago.
And here we are in May. And since then, people over and over again saying, what's going on with these? You've teased us. What's happening? Why are you teasing us? Well, we never wanted to tease you in the first place. Someone ruined our surprise, so now we have to make up for it. And the fact of the matter is, this is why we don't like to share too much news too early because of shit like this that happens. Think back to our Westlands, right? Where the Westland totes had been picked up and then lost for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. We thought we'd lost the liquid entirely. And we just had to kick that can down the road and tell people, and it's shit happens, and we'd rather keep things quiet until we have to share.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and talking about the release of the Virginia Distillery Company, and that was pending, and now that's delayed. Mm-hmm. And then our backwoods, just again, a day or two ago before this recording, we got told, oh yeah, that's now May 5th, May 6th. Like, I feel at this point, people are just emailing us to say, here's a number that's 2 weeks from now. Maybe you'll have some bottles by then. Probably won't. But there's a date for you. So we're now running almost 8-week delay. And that's it, just waiting on a spot to come into port. It did the long haul from Australia. Now it's just waiting to come into port. So
yeah, and then
go on.
Just really quickly, I
heard, then
I heard recently, and by recently I mean yesterday, that now once things hit port, it's typically 3 weeks before it's released from port. Right, so keep that in mind. Right?
Remember back in the intro where we only talked about good news, Joshua? You just piled some more shit on my shit sandwich.
You need some shit on your shit? I'll get some shit for your shit.
I'll take that with mayonnaise.
I'll have mine with salad cream, thank you.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was thinking about this. It's been a tough tough year. And I really do mean 12 calendar months. It's been tough. The easiest thing we did was our collaboration with Catoctin Creek. It was the easiest thing we've done in the last 12 months. Like, the casks were just up the road from me. Mm-hmm. I met Scott and Becky. We tasted them. We loved them. The cask went to their distillery. They bottled it. I went up and labeled it. We shipped it to San Francisco without issue. And we sold it out via lottery. More of that, please. That was absolutely terrific.
Yeah. Well, it's things like this, Jason, that shape us and that harden us, and that also make us cry. So
I can't get any harder. It's just I need it to soften me. If your whiskey industry has hardened you for more than 4 hours, please see a specialist.
Jesus Christ. Ooh, that's a jagged blue pill to swallow there. Anyway. We don't have
to laugh, haven't you?
We have to laugh, right? Do we have any more news to share? I really want to get to this game that we've...
I'm choking on my shit sandwich over here, so I personally don't have any more news, no.
So why don't you take us through this little game that we're about to play, courtesy of our friends at Blind Barrels.
Yeah, let me give you some background news here. So... Or is it background news? I don't think news is the right word. I've got news on the brain
it's
now.
Background mayonnaise.
Yeah, let me give you some background on this miracle whip. So when you and I participated in the Judgment of Westland with Steve Hawley, who we found out on April 1 is no longer with Westland. He put in he served his time. He put in a decade. Great guy to work with there. Looking forward to see what he does in the future. But when we did the Judgment of Westland, Steve had talked about at Westland, if not every Friday, as many Fridays as they can, they get the team together and they blind taste whiskey.
Yeah.
And you and I were talking about that and saying that's a terrific idea and a terrific thing to do. And it sowed a seed in my brain that I wanted us to do a little bit more of that in the podcast. Yeah. One of the things we hear from listeners is that they enjoy our tastings. And one of the requests we get the most is to do more tasting. And that always seems strange to me to be doing a tasting where we're just sitting chatting to one another. But listeners really love it. So thank you for that feedback and for those requests. And I got talking to Seabass, Christopher Sebastian, one day over text. And I was telling him, he was saying, I really loved your Judgment of Westland episode. I was saying, it's sown a seed. It's something I'd like to do with Joshua more on the podcast. And he says, well, it's funny you say that. I'm putting together, I'm working with, I'm developing a company here that will be sample packs of blind whiskies.
Amazing. Yep.
I said, well, please keep us in the loop. Let us know if we can help in any way. And a segment was born, partly for season 6. Yeah. We've talked about swapping in and swapping out some different segments. And so we can do some blind. And one of the things I was saying to Seabass was, the logistical side of it. Would you have Haida come in and pour something? Would I have Tamara come in and pour something? Have them leave a little note that says what they poured? Would we try to get them to pour the same thing? Anytime we involve our wives in our whiskey shenanigans, it never really goes particularly well.
Okay. Yeah,
Haida would have fucking no interest in coming in and doing that.
She wouldn't, but I think in theory, it should work. In theory, it should work. In practice, Right?
I tell
It
you what
should.
works.
Yeah, go ahead.
I tell you what works much, much better.
Okay.
Is a letter from the Blind Barrels team who have taken care of our logistical concerns.
Are you going to read this?
I am.
Okay.
So it begins, "Hey there." That's how you get out of the J&J dilemma. "Thanks for taking the time to walk through some whiskey with us. We know it's hard to find time in your schedules, and we are really glad you're making the sacrifice to drink through some samples." That's a word if I bring it to Tamara, she's not interested in. The sacrifice to drink through some samples. "As members of the whiskey community, we wanted to give you a behind-the-scenes look at our process in choosing the whiskies that fill our subscription boxes. We reach out to distilleries doing exciting things in the industry and chat with them about our model. Sometimes they are whiskey producers whose product we have enjoyed in the past. Sometimes we have just heard great things about them. Sometimes it's a place we have never heard of before. Regardless, each distillery sends us some of their bottlings that express what they do well, or something that they are excited about. But the whole point of Blind Barrels is that we don't just go with what we think we'll like, or what someone tells us we'll like. We test those preconceptions, we shut our eyes to bias, we avoid any assumptions we might have about the liquid, and we taste those samples blind ourselves, only including those that pass our rigorous standards. With each box, we aim for diversity in mash bill and proof level." I think proof level means strength.
I'm guessing. I think you're right.
Jason being facetious. "We're looking for the best of American craft whiskey producers, and we hope you enjoy these offerings. Cheers, the Blind Barrels team, Bobby, Christian, Christopher."
I tell you, just, hats off to Bobby, Christian, and Christopher for the most part, spelling whiskey the proper way without the E. I feel as if they did that specifically for us, and I appreciate that.
It takes all sorts. So that's the Blind Barrels side of business. We also got a personal letter from Seabass himself. And I'm not going to read it. He echoes some of the stuff that is in the letter that I just read there. But the point I want to make here is Seabass went into his own collection to send us blind samples that as we make reveals on this podcast, we're not spoiling any surprises for their subscribers. And whereas Blind Barrels has got a focus on American craft whiskies, the private stuff from Seabass, all he says is they are different whiskeys.
Yeah.
As in varieties, locations, countries.
He says, all I will say
grains.
about these samples is that they are all whiskeys of various types. So there you go.
There you go. So we are not being led that this is American craft. We are being led with, this is whiskey from the world. Good luck.
Yeah. So we have 4 samples, and with the sample pack came 4 envelopes, and they are listed sample A, B, C, and D. And then you open up the package, which, by the way, I've got to say, from a we've talked about this ad nauseum. We hate packaging and dealing with packaging because we know how much of a nightmare it is. Just thinking back to our Great Isla swim and all the back and forth to get it to where we wanted it to be. It was just
good news only, Joshua. Good news only.
I'm just saying it was a process, and one that we'd rather not deal with again.
Was the opposite of good news.
But then you have this nice presentation with a little magnetized lid. I don't know if people can hear this, but there's the magnet. And you open it up, and you're presented with the Blind Barrels logo, a little monkey with a S&M top hat. I assume that's an S&M top hat. And sunglasses. And then 4 little samples sitting there with you. It's like a corset on his head with a top hat kind of thing.
I'm just letting you utter words. I just like giving you some rope.
But I wanted
crazy,
to
man.
I wanted to take charge here because when it comes to games like this, you've always had the steering wheel.
Always is doing some heavy lifting in there. 3 for 3, you're batting 1,000.
There you go. It's more than once, Jason. You're on a roll. I'm changing that up.
I'm on a roll like mayonnaise.
So what I'm going to do is
Yes,
I'm
sir.
going to blindly select the sample that we will taste together. And we have got these 4 envelopes which tell you what it is. I'm not going to open the envelope. I'm just going to blindly select which one we will taste, okay? And then I will do the reveal after we taste it. All right, you ready? I don't know if people can hear this. Think people can hear this? Okay, here we go. Pick an envelope, any envelope. Which one do you pick?
I will pick the one second from your left.
This one?
Exactly that one.
Okay. Oh, sample A.
Well, to be honest, when you fanned them out, you had all the letters facing
Oh,
me.
did I?
No,
Oh,
it's a joke.
Okay.
It's a joke.
That is a joke. Okay. All right. So we've got sample A.
What a fucking waste of 30 seconds.
I know it could have been like if it were sample B through D, that would have been satisfactory. But no, it was just A in the end.
I tell you, I always pick A. I don't know what to tell you. I always pick A, Joshua.
It's always to the A with you. So let's talk about the color really quickly. It's kind of pale in color. It doesn't have the bourbon color.
That is very true. Yeah, if this was an SCN, a potential SCN sample,
Yeah.
what color would we put in our notes for this?
I think we would call this maybe like a dull gold.
So that's interesting that you say that. I would have gone with a
Maybe a hay?
bright gold.
Bright gold. Well, hold on.
Yeah, no.
Oh, it's because
dull.
you're behind it. That might remove the dullness if I. There we go. Now I put it by the window.
Well, that got harsh real fast. I'll just go sit in this corner over here and lick my wounds.
I think we both agree that it's a gold, right?
Gold, 100%. That's what it would be on an SCN tasting note. Gold. Because we would have fallen out for 10 minutes and then said gold.
I like the little sample bottles. They're kind of rectangular, square almost, actually.
It's got a heft to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was me or the bottle, but it didn't pour as well as I would have anticipated.
What would you say? Is this 50 ml? I think that's 50 ml per sample there.
I would, yes.
It's tough to tell
Yeah.
given the shape.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
Anyway, it's in the glass. I'm swirling. I'm holding up to the light. I'm looking for legs. I'm checking for ABV.
Okay. Yep.
I'm going to give it my little hand on top, my vigorous shake. See if I
Okay.
can read some bubbles. Okay, so we are definitely looking at something in the 40s.
So tell people really quickly this. You put your hand over the top of the glass. You shook the glass rigorously, and then you looked at the bubbles. What are you looking at to seek out a potential ABV when you do that?
Yes, so the aggressive shake, getting my hand wet, that vigorous, and then looking for a double ring of bubbles around the outside of the liquid. That would tell me we're at 50% alcohol, and then every ring of bubbles inside should be another 2%. Now, I did this at a tasting just the other week in Virginia Beach. It's a bit like reading tea leaves. They don't just form a neat double ring of bubbles and then one ring of bubbles inside and another ring of bubbles inside. Sometimes it'll move in different ways. It'll recede. They'll completely fall away.
Yeah.
But sometimes you'll just get a little pocket. I would say a little corner, even though the glass is circular. Sometimes you'll get a little pocket and you can read the bubbles from that little pocket. It really is something that if you do it quite regularly, you fall into the rhythm of what it looks like. But I've had success in warehouses saying to the person pouring the cask, is this 56%? Is this 58%? And I can get within a degree or two.
So I did that test, and I didn't get many bubbles at all. However, I'm getting, looking at the sides of the glass, I'm getting some seriously thick legs.
Agreed.
And when I rubbed my hands together, it took a while for that liquid to start drying up. This it seems like a heavier spirit, albeit not so heavy in alcohol. I think you're right. I think it may be in the 40s.
But definitely not chill filtered.
Yeah. I don't think that it is.
I've now said definitely twice. I'm sure I can kick myself in my own ass at the reveal here. I need to stop saying the word definitely.
Definitely.
I should definitely stop that. Yeah, I'm glad you bring up the oils, because it was part I was going to address as well, which is from that shake and watching the way it just kind of dissipated, the kind of the surface dissipated. I didn't think it was going to be this oily once it hit the high recesses of the glass. But do you have a grain in mind as you stick your nose in it?
I think it is 100% single malt. I think it's 100% single malt, and I'm
100% malted barley in here.
I'm starting to, well, as I'm smelling this, I have two distilleries popping into my mind immediately. Now, one of them, I think, would only work if the ABV were in the 50s, because this distillery releases a particular style of whiskey, maybe once a year, maybe once every other year, but that is, different from what they normally do, but it's always at cask strength. And if this is in the 40s, there's no way it's cask strength. So
you're doing what Steve Hawley gave us both into trouble for.
But Steve Hawley's not here. This is you and me, Jason.
He's here. Jason points at his heart.
Oh,
he's here.
Okay.
He's here. And so that's why I wanted to go with, what grain do you think? Okay. What cask do you think?
All right. So I would say that this is single malt. I would say that this is likely a bourbon cask, potentially first fill, right? There's some good sort of oak spice coming through. There's a big oak presence framing that pear drop quality, which leads me to believe this is likely something in the mid-teens or younger.
It's interesting. At no part,
I could be wrong on that.
Has my mind gone towards the age of it? And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just really intrigued in the fact that you're connecting dots on age. For me, I'm still focused on bright nose, fruity nose. You just talked about pear drops. I agree with you 100%.
And that's why I'm connecting a bit to the age, right? Or potential age, or it could be that this is second fill and older, right? And therefore, the oak is going to do some different things. I could be wrong.
Fingers crossed.
But I feel as if I'm getting just a smidge of peat, just a smidge of earthiness coming through. Now it could be barrel char and not and not peat, but it's just ever so subtle, or maybe it's a bit of sulfuriness in the spirit that's coming through as an earthiness, but there's something heavier, underneath that brightness that you were talking about.
See, for me, that can sometimes be the grain. It can be the malt sweetness that can bring a little bit of heaviness. Sometimes, depending on the malt, that can bring a little bit of earthiness, but without the peat involved.
Yeah.
Just malt itself can have a weight.
God,
Have you tasted it yet?
I haven't. The nose is
Yeah, I'm really
Really
digging
lovely.
the nose. It's absolutely a bourbon maturation style that I really dig.
yeah.
So I'm going to give it a taste.
All right, you give it a taste while I continue to nose it a little bit. Have you come up with a guess already?
No,
Okay.
no, but I'm really convinced that we're in the 40s across the palate. A little bit of the barrel presence going across the palate there. If at this point you were
interesting.
going to say you got just a hint of peat,
Yeah.
this is the place that I would agree with you.
Yeah,
There's
see,
something going across the middle of the palate there.
you're getting a minerality as well.
Maybe a dryness that's taking that form of minerality.
Yeah, for me, it's like I don't want to sound like some pompous. I don't want these notes to sound pompous, but that kind of like.
However,
that sort of dry beach grass or like a sandy beach, but not at low tide. You're not getting that sort of coastal Isla kind. Like this doesn't come across as a big Isla smasher, but it's that sort of soft, dry grass, sand kind of thing going on.
this is how far down the rabbit hole I am. None of that sounded pretentious. So, but I feel like it's when Niles talks to Fraser, and neither one of them think they're pompous, and clearly they both are.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, that's interesting. I'm starting to get some of this tinned peaches kind of note coming through.
Yeah, I'd listen to that. Yeah,
And it's
for me
yeah.
there was licorice all sort development.
All right.
That little bit of fondant, just a hint of the licorice side of it, much more the fondant side of it.
Okay, but not the coconutty, not the coconut.
No.
Yeah.
I'm really digging it. I've had a distillery in mind from the very beginning, and each step, and this could just simply be confirmation bias and why I hate blind tasting, but it's fun to do with friends and dear listeners. Every step of this has reinforced the distillery that I thought it could be. And there's not really a plan B for who I think produced this. I'm fully committed to my plan A, which is why this is going to be hugely embarrassing at the reveal.
So I'm going to throw some initial assumptions out there.
Go for it. I'm ready.
I'm going to suggest that this is from a distillery that doesn't necessarily have its own bottlings. That this is potentially like a Gordon MacPhail own label or a connoisseur's choice 40%, 43% bottling of a lesser known distillery. Those are my initial assumptions.
My initial assumptions are, from the nose, like you, I was deeply committed to single malt. As I've tasted it and experienced the finish,
Interesting.
if this was also a bespoke blend, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Oh,
There's a
geez.
particular company that I have in mind.
Yeah, but now you have me. I remember this one time, Jason, you and I were at Ornmore in Glasgow, and I tricked you twice in one day, in one night. It was you, me, Murray. This was 2011, Jason. It was you, me, Murray, and we had some guests we had taken on a tour, and I had done two tricks. Trick number one was I had the barman, and it was a man, so I'm going to say barman. I had the barman do a 50-50 of Lagavulin 16-year-old and Lafroig 18-year-old, and I made you a Lafroig Gavulin. And you...
That was Lafroig 18 in that?
Yeah. That the
wow.
original Lafroig Gavulin has Lafroig
wow.
18. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
And then I tricked you with the B&J blend.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is Glen Murray, Glenmorangie, and then a grain. I don't know what the grain is. And it just presents itself as a very fruity, malty, almost lowland style of whiskey.
Do you want to tell the listeners the BNJ?
Oh, shit.
Bailey Nickel Jarvey?
Thank you. Yeah. All right. You've told them.
All right, come on then. So let's like A. So here's the thing: A, it's delicious. B,
Yep.
I would buy it. C, I would drink it. D, I would share it.
Okay. So here's the thing: you had said you would buy it,
Yep.
despite what I think we know to be true. This is either at 40 or 43%. You're still gonna buy it.
Because I'm going to stand by it not being chill filtered. And if it is a blend that has come in at 43% from the company that I think it's come in from, then I already buy their stuff at lower ABVs because I believe in them. Why are you revealing? What's happened? You're fingering an envelope.
Yeah, I'm glad you said envelope. So you've made your assumption, now I'm making my assumption?
Yeah. Or a reveal. Tell us what you think.
Oh, because you said reveal, so I was about to reveal.
No, that's what I was saying. Don't.
Okay.
25%, you lost one of the two words.
So
If I'd had 4 words, you would have lost one of them. 3 of them.
I think it has a great nose. I think it has a great palate. It's an easy sipper because the ABV is so low. I'd agree with you that I think it's non-chill filtered because even though the ABV is low, it's still coating your palate a bit. And so I like that. I would probably spring for a bottle of this specifically to be something you would share because it's just an all-rounder pleasing whiskey. It's got depth to it, and it's fun. And
you think it is?
can I tell you what I thought it was and then change my mind, or you just want just final?
Tell us why you changed your mind from where you had been.
Well, I'm still vacillating a bit, right? So when
I can see.
When I first nosed it, it almost smelled like unpeated Kalila. It had an austere, bright, fruity quality to it.
If Seabass has sent us an unpeated Kalila, I'm flying to California to smack my glove against his cheek.
But
that would be rude.
But the reason I know it's not unpeated Kalila is there's no way this is cask strength, and the unpeated Kalila releases are always cask strength and always beautiful, I would argue. And then I got to thinking, boy, this could be a Klein Leash. Because right, it has some of those, and even at a lower ABV, right, it has that texture coming through.
But it doesn't remain waxy.
It doesn't remain waxy, right?
And so I'm with you. The nose had me thinking, could this be?
And that's why
Klein-Lish?
you went with. That's why you think it's from a particular blender who likes to use Klein Leash as a backbone to many of their blends.
The one portion of that, yes.
And then finally, I've always said to people, I'm terrible at blind nosing or tasting anything. However, I can always detect Springbank and I can always detect Imperial. And now I'm thinking, could this be Imperial? Like, are there hints of Imperial? And when I got that little bit of smoke, I was thinking back, wait a second, Michael Jackson got the hints of smoke in his 1989, malt whiskey companion.
sent us a 1980s low ABV smoky Imperial.
So, right? And so you can see why I'm vacillating a bit. So, shall we do the reveal? No. What do we do?
We need to commit to guesses.
Mother.
I haven't even given you mine.
All right. I am going. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go on. Well, yeah, go on.
I feel that it is likely a Gordon MacPhail's Connoisseur's Choice Clynelish of some age, probably mid-teens and a bit younger, at 40%.
Interesting. So, I mentioned earlier the color, the nose, the barrel type, the palate, the finish. Each one supported the stage before it. And I thought all the way down I was dealing with Aaron.
So, yes, I know what you're saying there. But again, Aaron has a particular bite to it thanks to the 46% and above.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what then took me out of the single malt world and had me think this is like Compass Box Great King Street Artist Blend. This is doing all the things that bottle does for me, and sitting here drinking it on a bright spring morning. All signs for me point to Compass Box Great King Street Artist Blend. So now, let's see how horrifically wrong we are.
Here it comes. Oh my gosh, I just had an idea. What if it's one of those Douglas Lang blended malts? No, but those are 46% and above, and I just don't think so. So, okay, so...
Yeah, we're both deeply committed to this being 40 or 43. Yeah, this is going to be the first stage where we see if we've embarrassed ourselves.
Oh my God.
Oh, we've embarrassed ourselves. Okay. Let's see where this goes.
Wow.
Oh, no.
Oh
no.
My gosh.
Back of the class.
So let me first read the tasting notes. These are... So first off, I'll say this. 43%.
Well, we can always take that to the bank, Joshua.
100% malted barley.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay.
And I'm going to read you the official tasting notes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Aroma: pine sap, basil, green apple Jolly Ranchers, ocean dune grass, sun-baked beach rock. See what I said about the sand?
On the grass as well.
Dried salt, dry hay. Look at that, Jason. All right, tasting notes: pine needle, kiwi, pear, green apple Jolly Rancher lingers, fresh on the palate, mint. Interesting on the mint. I didn't get the mint. Finish: fresh and dry, green tea, light salinity, subtle smoke, cocoa powder, and wintergreen. So... Now this, I think that is Seabass's personal notes, perhaps?
I think so.
And then, okay, I guess I can't say too much past that. So, because what I'm about to read is going to tell you.
I think we've come far enough. All we can do full reveals.
Distillery: Hakushu. 12-year-old Hakushu.
Huh. I always thought of Hakushu being closer to Talisker in its kind of peated, peppery profile.
You're thinking of the Hakushu heavily peated, which does come
indeed
across.
I am. Indeed I am.
And so this is what this is what they say is our take. With the nation's recent foray into Japanese whiskey, I thought this would be an excellent opportunity for you to take a chance to examine and discuss one of the Japanese single malts that started it all. Between pauses in availability and discussion of price hikes, this is a delicious bottle that I'm so glad I have on my shelf and showcases the depth of Japanese whiskey when done correctly. Hakushu states that this bottling is a blend of non-peated malts, aged in American oak and sherry casks and then married with peated malts before the entire blend is finished in American oak.
Wow, the sherry DNA in there is long gone.
Long gone. Yeah, that's makes you wonder how much sherry maturation, how much of it is likely second fill or refill. But there you go. So
Japanese single malt. My mind did not go there at any point.
It didn't, right? Because I think, and I remember you saying this years ago, that you always had a difficult time wrapping your head around some of the notes coming from Japanese single malts, be it from Suntory or Nikka. And this really, really presented itself as having Scottish lineage.
100%.
Right? Yeah.
100%. Which again, right, I mentioned earlier the tasting that I did at Virginia Beach the other week. And somebody in there had said, "What's your take on Japanese whiskey?" And I said, "I absolutely love it, adore it. I love what they've achieved. I love what they've done. I love the fact that they put it right up Scotland and said, look what we've advanced over here. How are things going for you in Scotland?
Yeah, how you guys doing?"
Right. And I feel like Scotland upped its game in response to the quality product coming out of Japan. And so to sit here with a Japanese single malt and never once think about the island of Japan, like, yeah, gotta open our minds, right? Gotta expand that base.
What a nice, just thinking that Seabass shared this from his own collection. What a nice thing for him to do. So, thank you obviously to the folks at Blind Barrels, but more specifically to Seabass for sharing some whiskeys from his own collection.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to tasting samples B through D with you.
100%, I'm with you. Cheers to Seabass. That was a great way to kick this off. And as you say, Joshua, if that was sample A, randomly chosen, I'm curious to see what's in B, C, and D. In the meantime, before we circle back to those in a future episode, if you'd like to learn more about Blind Barrels, as we're tasting selections by their chief selector, you can visit them at blindbarrels.com.
Oh, that's nice and easy.
Yes, it is.
Jason, before we get out of here, as you know, we've petitioned our listeners. We said to them, friends, countrymen. What's the other one? It's friends, Romans, countrymen. Why is it the Romans? Where does that come from?
Why is any of this happening?
I don't know. We've petitioned our listeners. We said, look, we want to get into more ears if we can, and we would like your help. And one of the easiest ways to get into more ears is to get more reviews on Apple Podcasts. That way Apple Podcasts says, ooh, this seems to be a very popular podcast. Let me suggest it to other people. So to get popular, we need more reviews, more 5-star reviews, blah, blah, blah. And since we've asked people of that, we've gotten a few more 5-star reviews, and 2 comments thus far have come in, and I think there may be a third one on its way. This is me asking our listeners to send more. Please go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. 4 if you're feeling cheeky. If it's 3 or below, just, call me, call us, email us, and we'll have a conversation. But we got 2 in.
We'll have a conversation.
We will have
We'll send someone round to your house to have a conversation.
So I'm going to read the first one that came in since we petitioned our listeners. 5-star review. And this is from...
I like how you're using the word petitioned instead of begged. I quite like this. It's classy. Classing it up.
You're welcome. So this one is from someone named Cotton Ma. 5 stars. And the title says, long listener, first-time reviewer.
Yippee!
It says, Joshua and Jason put out the best whiskey podcast. And the best with an industry perspective. They're pretty funny, too. Especially if you like Lord of the Rings jokes. I heartily endorse this product and or event. Now, we did receive a second one, but I'm not going to read that until the next episode. I'm going to dangle that carrot.
Woohoo!
And I want people to know that, hey, if you do write a review, we will call out your name. We will read your words, but only if they're the good reviews. We only want the good reviews. So.
Yeah, I listened to Mike Birbiglia's podcast called Working It Out. He's absolutely one of my favorite comedians, absolute favorites.
Same.
And at the end of his podcast, he's always saying, go and review and help us get the word out. And he always says, tell your friends. Tell your enemies. And I love the thought of telling your enemies about a podcast that you listen to. It just always sticks in my head. So today, yeah, if you're helping us get the word out, tell your friends, tell your enemies.
Because you know what? You may find you like something in common, and maybe your enemies will become friends. Look at that, Jason.
How wonderful would that be?
Oh, I would love it. So, Jason, I thank you for your time. Samara, again, thank you so much for your time.
100%.
Lovely speaking with you.
Yep.
And then finally, not just to our listeners, but also to our friends at Blind Barrels, we thank you. We thank you for the samples. We thank our listeners for listening. And Jason, I like what you've said. You've been saying this really since the beginning of the war in Ukraine. You've been closing rather than with 2 chins, rather than with cheers, you've been closing simply with peace. And so therefore I say, peace.
2 pieces.
Oh, 2 pieces. Oh my gosh. Oh, Jason, stop. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.